Hey guys, Joe Bonamassa here. I hope you enjoyed this KTBA Artist Spotlight from my friend and yours, the great Walter Trout.
Oh, I did a lot of stuff. I had to subsidize my musical career, especially when I first moved to California. I was a stand-up lead singer in a country western band. I didn't even play guitar. I sang Merle Haggard and Hank Williams. I drove a forklift. I was a short order cook. I was the guy, I worked for one guy painting micrometer knobs. You know, micrometers with the little lines that they measure thousandths of an inch, and they have these little black lines. I painted those lines.
To me.
Yeah. And the way you did it, you took the micrometer, you painted the whole thing with black paint, you let it dry overnight, and then you took a rag with acetone and you went like that. So I spent a good few months there, you know, breathing acetone. I'm amazed I'm as lucid as I am.
Right. It's like huffing glue. I mean,
and I was not trying to get high on the acetone, but I had to do it to make money. I was, you know, I will tell you, when I first started playing with a lot of the blues acts I just mentioned, the blues was at a low point. For instance, when I was playing with John Lee Hooker, Urban Cowboy had just come out, and everybody had to play Cotton Eye Joe, and no, it was, I'm sorry, John Travolta screwed up musicians' lives twice. He had Urban Cowboy and he had Saturday Night Fever. I'm talking Saturday Night Fever. It was hard to get a gig because everything became disco.
And Donna Summer.
And I love Donna Summer, but. So I was playing with John Lee Hooker, and we were playing in little clubs that literally held 30 or 40 people, little coffee shops.
Like a
little jazz club, and I was lucky if I was making $5 or $10 a night. One of the guys in the band, first off, how can I put this? I was the only vanilla fella in the band, and I was the only guy under 60. And one of the guys in the band, Mr. Hooker, paid him his $5, and he looked at him and he said, "John Lee Hooker, I got a little baby at home. He don't do nothing but eat and shit, and they both costing me money." I'll never forget that line. I started to play the guitar in 1961.
Okay, so
before that, I was an aspiring jazz trumpet player. I studied trumpet from age 6 or 5 or 6. I took lessons. I played in a high school orchestra. As a matter of fact, on my 10th birthday, I was so into it, I got to spend the day. My mom arranged this. I got to spend the day with Duke Ellington and his orchestra hanging out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was an incredible day. But in 1961, my older brother came home with a record and he said, "You got to hear this guy. This guy's got something really different than anything I've ever heard. Give this a listen." And it was the first album by Bob Dylan, and he was brand new. And something about it caused me to say, "Hey man, I want to get an acoustic guitar and I want to learn those songs. They're very simple, but I can go to parties and play those 3 chords and sing those songs." I was really taken with it, you know. And so I started playing folk music, and in the early 60s there was a folk music boom in the States. There was a show called Hootenanny. It was on once a week, and you would see people like Josh White or the New Christy Minstrels or the Chad Mitchell Trio or Joan Baez. All these people would be on there, and I really got into it and started wanting to play folk music. And then 3 years later, February 9th, 1964, 8 o'clock Sunday night, Channel 2 in Philadelphia, CBS, the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, baby. Had to get an electric guitar. It changed my life. I wanted to be in a band then. And the trumpet started, it began taking second seat, although I played it in the orchestra and the marching band all through high school. Because if I stayed in the orchestra and the marching band and the choir, I didn't have to take gym. So
I'm with you on that one. I did some things to get out of swimming, believe me.
There you go.
Yeah. Do you ever listen to trumpet players today and say,
I
man,
do.
you know, draw on that?
I was, if I couldn't sound like Miles Davis, I knew I had to do something different. I will tell you, from the very beginning of playing guitar, I realized that vibrato is your signature. Mm-hmm. Every guitar player, they have their own vibrato. It's different. If you hear B.B. King play one note, even if you've never heard the song before, you know it's B.B. King. Yeah. And you can ask my wife, we can ride along, I'll have the radio on, we'll hear a song I've never heard before, and I'll go, I bet that's Johnny Winter. Yeah. I'll bet that's Mike Bloomfield. I'll bet that's David Gilmour. I'll bet, you know, it's Roy Buchanan.
And that's what makes a great player, is having your own signature.
Yeah,
Seriously.
So I knew it was important, and I worked on it, and I still tell young guitar players, work on your vibrato. Mm-hmm. It's important, man. I mean, there's a couple of different approaches to it. There's, you know.
So can I interrupt for a second? So what you did, you actually picked as you went to it. It looked to me like you went as you were going to the note.
Yeah.
So it's not like you had the note and then picked
and
it.
You know,
volume swells. Yeah, it's just too cool.
But there's a couple of different kinds. The B.B. King, he did the main one where you just put your finger on the note, on the fret, and you move it back and forth. Now there's another kind which is where you bend into the note and then you vibrato it. Wait a minute. Right? Or let me get this thing in a better angle. And then you can I love that vibrato where you bend up to the note. Mm-hmm. The challenge with that for young players is if you're going to do that and bend to the note, you better hit it right on.
Pitch,
don't be a quarter tone sharp or a quarter tone flat, because then it can get that kind of screaming weasel effect. Mm-hmm. I played in the early 70s when I got to LA with a legendary guitar player named Jesse Edwin Davis. Jesse played on Walls and Bridges and Rock and Roll by John Lennon. He played on a bunch of Bob Dylan records. He did all the leads on Atlantic Crossing by Rod Stewart. He toured with the Faces. The opening scene of the Concert for Bangladesh DVD is Jesse lighting George Harrison's cigarette. Mm-hmm. And I happened to luck my way into Jesse's band when I moved to LA. And one of the things Jesse told me about vibrato, he said, your vibrato can either turn people off or it can invite them in. Mm-hmm. It can irritate them or it can soothe them and caress them. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget him telling me that, and he told me to work on it too. I got into his band. That was one of the things he told me. The potential of the guitar is so limitless because of like so a lot of my approach to vibrato actually comes from playing with Jesse Ed Davis for 2 years. And if you look him up and read about him, his body of work will blow your mind. Yeah. He's the guy that plays the solo on Doctor My Eyes by Jackson Browne, among other things.
Actually, that solo is the one solo where he hits an open string during it. Did you ever hear that?
He hated that solo.
Yeah, he makes a mistake, and
he
they kept it in.
He didn't like it.
It's a great solo.
Yeah, well, he didn't like it, and they wouldn't let him do it over.
Oh, yeah, it's great. But you hear that open string in the center of that solo.
But if you he had just a major impact on my approach to vibrato. And vibrato is your signature, man. I'll tell you a quick story. I basically, at age 15 or 16, I made the decision I'm going to be a blues guitar player. And then nothing else mattered. And I just went for it. But I never thought of it as practicing. I was playing because I loved it and I wanted to play, and I would take in these different styles and try and emulate it and I'd go see guys, and I lived on the East Coast. Me and my buddies would go see Roy Buchanan when nobody ever heard of him.
Oh my God.
And so, I have to say though, sometimes I feel very limited in what I can do. I'm only aware of my limitations to the point of last year, for the first time ever in my life, I started taking guitar lessons.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Off of who?
A fella named Dave Nassi, who lives in Nashville, and he's a technical, he's indescribable.
Yeah.
Technical. He can play anything from country to rock to heavy metal and play it better than anybody. And I wanted to learn a different approach, especially to this.
To picking your right hand.
To picking.
Your right hand.
And one thing, he watched me play because I taught myself. I had some bad habits. And one thing that he helped me with, I used to play and hold the pick like this. So when I was really going, it was hitting, right? And he said, Walter, just use the very tip of the pick. And that has changed.
And it's a small pick you have.
Well, it's just a regular Fender.
It looks small from
It's extra heavy, but
yeah.
Just him getting me to do that and to change my picking approach has opened up whole new worlds. My childhood, I won't go into it, but it was pretty crazy. And when I discovered the guitar, it became like sanctuary. And there's actually a biography of me that was written by a British journalist, and he wanted a title. I said, call it Rescued from Reality, because this rescued me from the reality of my life, and it gave me somewhere to go, somewhere to hide, somewhere that I could go somewhere where nobody else could find me. And in that little bubble of this instrument, life was limitless for me. And it remains that to me. It remains, it just means everything. This is what I tell young guys who want to say they want to play the blues, is don't just sit and concentrate on technique. The important thing in this genre, this is the genre I'm in, right? The important thing is to express your heart through your music. And the technique will come if you put the hours in, but to just get up and just play a bunch of fast scales and stuff, you have to have something to say. You have to look down into yourself. You have to find those parts of yourself that you need to express. You have to find the feelings you want to put out there, and you have to make it come through your heart, through your fingers, through the guitar, and it's very important that you communicate it to those people. I love looking at those people when I play to them. I want it to go from here to there, and I want them to go, I understand what you're getting at with that note.
Yeah.
And I tell young players, it's about the feel. That's what's important.
Yeah, the soul.
The old blues guys, it's all about the
they didn't
feel.
have any chops.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just played.
But you put on Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground by Blind Willie Johnson, and if you can get through that without breaking down, you're a better man. I think they are doing an incredible thing, trying to maintain this music and present it to a younger group of people, because as my wife will tell you, the audience for the blues right now seems to be baby boomers, people of my age, and it's really important. If we want this music to keep going, we've got to get it out there to young people, and that bringing it to young people in the schools and doing what they're doing is vital. It's really an amazing thing.